Let's take a look at a situation where we want our conditional statements, our if statements, to be a little bit more complicated. So this one's going to be something that, I'll spell it right. I call compound if statements. So they're if statements that have multiple Boolean expressions in order to arrive at a logical conclusion. So I've got my scanner set up for input here. I'm going to need a couple variables here. So we'll be using two numbers here, n1 and n2. So we'll prompt for values here. So system.out.print, enter number 1. N1 gets the value of input.nextInt. I'm going to repeat this, so this is going to be a copy and paste. So we're going to enter number 2, and N2 is going to be input.nextInt. This is the last time I need input, so I'm going to input.close. And I'm ready to work on my if statement. So what I want to do is I want to try to check to see if both of them are the same value. So let's pick the number 5. So if n1 is 5, that's one thing I want to check. But I also want to check to see if the other one is also 5 at the same time. So I'm going to use the two and signs for logical and n2 equals 5. If this is the case, system.out.println, I'm going to say both numbers are 5. Okay. So how does this work? So this is an and in order for this to be true, an and related compound if statement true if both sides are true. So what's going to happen is it's going to take a look at this. It's going to evaluate this as either true or false, and this is true or false. If this side is true and the other one is false, this whole statement is false. It needs both this side and the other side to be true at the same time. So we've got an and also very commonly for most programming languages, you get an or. So if n1 equals 5, and here's how we do an or. It's two vertical lines, or n2 equals 5, we can say system.out.println at least one number is 5. Okay, so in this situation, or is an or, and true if at least one side is true. So this is going to run if one side is true or the other side is true, and then it'll say at least one number is 5. Now, here's an interesting scenario. I'm going to make a copy of this, and I'm going to place it here. So I've got two copies of the or. I can eliminate this for now. And I'm going to change this to an else if. Now, there's an interesting situation here where we can actually write a different output for this because we have additional information. If you get to this part of the if-else ladder, then you have already determined that this is a false statement. So if not both of them are 5, you know that one of them isn't 5. So if one of the numbers is 5 and then this, or isn't 5, and this is a true statement, then we can actually say only one number is 5, which makes this output kind of silly, but we're going to leave it in anyway, because it's not mutually exclusive from this one. At least one number is 5. Only one number is 5 is a subset of at least one number is 5. Okay, so we can leave both of those. Okay, so let's say if n1 equals 5, we're going to say system.out.println, we can say at least one number is 5. So this is a different way of structuring. This is kind of like what an OR is doing. Else if, now I'm going to do a copy and paste for this. If n2 is 5, we get at least one number is 5. So if you take a look at both of these, they accomplish the same task. So instead of my options listed vertically, like we did in the previous program, here I can combine them into one Boolean statement. Okay? Now, the last thing that I want to look over in this video are ranges of numbers and how we deal with those when we're doing compound if statements. So what I want to do is I want to do a range from 5 to 10. Range from 5 to 10. So we need an if statement for this. And we would say something like system.out.println, the number is between 5 and 10, and then we say inclusive to say that it could also be 5 or 10. So the way we do this is we're going to make sure that n1 is larger than or equal to 5. And I'll leave this as a mystery for now. And n1, I guess I'll say the number 1. n1 is less than or equal to 10. So this should handle the range. And now it's up to you to figure out what goes here. Do we need an and? Do we need an or? And very frequently people will get the opposite from what is intended. So think about it this way. If we put an or, which is, I'm giving you a heads up, this is wrong. Imagine we had the number 100. If the number 100 was entered, this would be a true statement, and this would be a false statement. But because of the or, it only needs one side to be true. So if I put the number 100, it would say the number is between 5 and 10, which is wrong. So always think about an example number and what would happen as a result. So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that it's an and. If I entered a 100, yes, it would be larger than or equal to 5, but it would not be less than or equal to 10. So this would be a false statement and we wouldn't get our output here. Now, what about a range outside 6 to 11? What would we do for this? So in this situation, we would check to see if n1 is less than 6 or n1 is larger than 11, because we are only caring if it's on one side or the other side. So I guess I'm going to copy paste. The number 1 is outside 6 to 11. Okay. But now, what if I needed to check to see if either number was in the range of 5 to 10? here's how I would do that. If, and I'm going to check either number. I'm going to say at least one number is between 5 and 10 inclusive. Okay, so what I would do here, and I'm going to leave myself some space. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste it again here and switch the other side to 2. Now, when you're doing something like this, you should really keep each section of the Boolean statement in parentheses, so it gives a clear indication of what you're kind of checking between. So for this, if it's at least one of them, we're going to use an or. So this whole side could be true, or this whole side could be true, and then we're happy. And now if we're checking to see if both of them are, say, outside of this range, put both are outside 6 to 11, we're going to do something like this. I'm going to put some extra parentheses here. And we're going to have this one side, or N2. We're going to check to see N2. And this one particularly gets really messy if we don't put the parentheses on it. And we're going to check to see if we're doing a both. So at least one or something like either would usually imply an or, and if it's both or all of, we're using some ands. So anyway, here's a good listing of different versions of compound if statements. I'm going to run this to make sure that I didn't make any typos. So I am going to pick 7 and 8. So the number 1 is between 5 and 10. At least one number is between 5 and 10, which is right. If I pick, say, the number 5 and 50, you get a whole bunch of results. At least one number is 5. Only one number is 5, remember, because we looked at that in some different ways. The number 1 is between 5 and 10 inclusive. That's right. Number 1 is outside the range of 6 to 11. At least one number is in the range, and both are outside of 6 to 11. Okay, so save this because you probably want to refer back to this because it has a lot of different examples of compound if statements, and you're going to be using these repeatedly in all of your programs going forwards.